for me at least, is you kind of hear people talk about imposter syndrome and different things like that. I think one of my biggest lessons is don't let the enemy of good be perfect or something like that. And I think it's with Instagram, it's wonderful because it's kind of democratized the ability to market yourself and be an expert in your field, but it's also really easy to compare your journey.
Hey, what's up, guys? Jordan Anderson here, and welcome to another episode. Today we sit down with Kat Campbell-Houston from the account Cutlery. It's Cutlery with a K. And she runs an Instagram account. She's a chef and traveler in the DC area. You can find her on Instagram showing off some of her latest fashion or some of her latest and greatest food recipes. She is a food blogger, Instagrammer. We talk about kind of her process as... she's an Instagram influencer. She's a chef. She's a traveler. So we're trying to talk about like how does she approach that from a small business perspective, and we talk about kind of how she sees her workflow, how she sees her process. When she's creating these culinary dishes, we kind of ask her. We kind of get into like what her process is, what her workflow is, what her mindset is. This is a great episode. She was super fun to talk with. Hope you enjoy. Let's get started. All right, so we are here with Kat Campbell-Houston. Kat, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
So if you want to give us a quick little 5-minute intro just about who you are, what you've been up to, what are you doing right now?
Awesome. So I'm Kat Campbell-Houston. By day, I am a user experience designer for a Fortune 500. So I get to work on their mobile app and also their website. So kind of using my creativity in a more data-driven way. But at night, I am a self-taught cook, and I absolutely love entertaining and cooking and anything culinary. So my spirit animal is probably Julia Child. I use lots of butter when I cook, and I really do cook from the heart. So anything you want to know, you can ask.
Okay. So how did the channel get started? Did it start just originally as an Instagram brand, or has it moved beyond that, or was it a website first?
Sure. So I'll kind of back up a little bit. Once I graduated in 2008, it was kind of like the Great Recession. So my degree is in design and merchandising, and I thought I was going to be like a Carrie Bradshaw, like the chocolate version, and I was going to move to New York and, just live this fabulous life. And I ended up coming back to this area. I went to college in Philadelphia. I went to Drexel. So I moved back here, and I kind of started working in museums and kind of getting away from what I thought I was going to do. And I just needed a creative outlet. And I remember one day I came home and I just started kind of cooking. I was a little bored and didn't really have an outlet. And I kind of like made something for the whole house, and they were like, wow, this is good. And I was like, oh, so I can cook now. And it just kind of became something that challenged me. It really feeds my soul. I love nurturing, but I also love the artistic side of cooking. Like when you're plating, when you are, just like I love like dripping out chocolate and different things like that, and making like these gorgeous designs, or using like spun sugar, or even just plating fruit. Like that, all of that speaks to my design sensibilities. So this kind of just became something that was totally unexpected. Would never have thought, if you asked me 10 years ago, I would be that person at the restaurant that was taking pictures of their food before they ate it. And I love any excuse to entertain. Like I think last summer for 4th of July, I did like the adult Capri Suns. So I ordered like all the pouches off of Amazon. I'm like that person. I'm like, oh, it's Christmas. We're going to do this type of cocktail.
Every holiday is an opportunity.
Oh my God. I go crazy. Okay. I'm always getting emails from Williams Sonoma or having something delivered to the house from Amazon. So this has just been something that really is a part of my life, and I do it with a great deal of passion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as a child, did you cook at all?
No.
And you have like no formal cooking training?
No, none at all. I actually have some of my college friends in high school, and they're like, you can cook? They're like totally shocked because, I mean, I think like in college, I lived in a like dorms with suites, and we had these little shared kitchenettes. And the most I could do at that point was like Trader Joe's, like warming up sesame chicken or,
Sure.
like fried rice or something. So friends that knew me then and now they're like, where was all this energy when we lived together?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what motivated you? You figure out that you know how to cook. You kind of have a passion for it. It's kind of a nice bridge between your design day work and now you're just a little bit more of a creative outlet. What was the turning point where you say like, I'm gonna post about this, or like I'm gonna make a brand around this, or like I'm gonna start a little business around this?
So I would bring, 2 jobs ago, I was working as an administrative assistant within the government, and I would bring my like little Instagram pictures into work at times, and people would be like, why do you work here? Like, what are you doing with your life? Like, and so it was like those little things where you're like, wow, like this really resonates with people, or this is encouraging to them. So it was just in that sense of it connecting with them. And then your friends are kind of like, hey, are you cooking, this weekend? Or like, what are we doing? It's cookout season or something. So it was just those little bits of support that kind of pushed me. And I do kind of want to go back to one thing. So I couldn't cook as a kid or a teen, and I didn't necessarily enjoy it. But one of my first really happy memories of cooking was not only my mom. She was a person that she made like 50 dishes for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but I really do remember I didn't have cable growing up. So on PBS, I would watch Julia Child. There was another show called Dessert Circus, and they would make like all these like fancy desserts. And I was just like, that's just cool. It didn't make me hungry or anything like that, but it was just like, wow, you can do that with like frozen berries, or you can, set creme brulee on fire or different things like that. I also loved Yan Can Cook.
Okay.
So those little things, you kind of like never connect the dots. It was just more something to watch that was interesting on TV. But now I find myself and I'm kind of like, maybe there was like a little seed, planted there. Or you don't know that you're going to be good at something until you ultimately try it. Yeah.
Okay. So now you're running your cutlery brand.
Yes.
And so how has that been? How is that like, because you still have a full-time job and like balancing all that, like what were some, we can go into tips about it, but like,
sure.
What's sort of your approach basically to balancing all that?
Wow. So, I would have to say, for me at least, is you kind of hear people talk about imposter syndrome and different things like that. I think one of my biggest lessons is probably not letting, what do they say? Like, don't let the enemy of good be perfect or something like that. And I think it's with Instagram, it's wonderful because it's kind of democratized the ability to market yourself and be an expert in your field. But it's also really easy to compare your journey or your skill level to other people. So I think sometimes me moving beyond the fear of like, is this good enough? Like, is this post good enough? Or, did I edit this picture the best that it could be, instead just putting it out there, because it's really easy to say like, oh, I'm not, in Washington Post style section yet, or I'm not, being retweeted or reposted by this brand.
What goes through your mind when you're comparing yourself? Is that a good thing that you compare yourself to others? Does that cripple you at times? Like when you say like you look at other people's work on Instagram, like what's going through your mind?
It can definitely be a double-edged sword, because you'll say, hey, I'm looking at their style and I'm kind of saying, how did they, get that shadow, or how did they know how to style the food just right? Because that's a pure art form of knowing what colors are complementary, knowing what textures go together, how to focus on the right part of a dish and what to blur and different things like that. But it can also be something where you kind of be a little too harsh on yourself at times, because you're like, man, like, am I getting the engagement that I want? Am I getting the metrics that I want? So I think it's always that constant push and pull of saying, let me look at someone and be inspired, but not necessarily use that as a negative against myself and say, maybe I'm not, getting the reach I want, because the key is really engaging and building your own community. So finding out what Cutlery's journey is going to be and how that's different from some of the other food bloggers or brands that are out there.
Have you done deal brands? What's like your take on that? Like, because like is that the future goal?
Okay. I think it's really a great opportunity, because any chance for a creative person to be paid and made whole for their services, because you look at Instagram has been such a great place for highlighting other brands. Like, I know that if I find something I really love, I'm like, oh, in my stories, I'm like, oh my God, I love this honey, or I love, whatever. So I definitely think it's wonderful if you're paid for that, because, I mean, you are giving visibility to other brands or other companies. So I think it's good on one hand, but I think it can also be restrictive sometimes, because Instagram kind of started as this very organic platform where people would just be like, oh, I'm taking a picture of this tree I like, or like I'm here eating and stuff. And then it kind of becomes this vicious cycle where you're constantly looking for like, what is this next project I'm going to look at? And then I don't know if you see this sometimes, but I'll see people that I follow and they start working with brands, and you can tell the tone of their account really changes. Like, now they're in a bathtub with this shampoo and you're like, do you even use this shampoo? So I think it's good. So that goes to really making sure you're aligned with companies and brands that make sense for you.
Yeah.
So I definitely, like, I'll scroll through my timeline. I'm like, okay, that's not you who wrote it, or the tone is very different.
Yeah, because like the client will come in and they'll just like they'll like
Yes!
say this, use this caption. We like this wording.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's good if you can do it on your own terms and it feels authentic to your brand and it resonates with your audience or your community that you've built. But I think that, I'll give you like a perfect example of something. So I went to the Clico Polo Classic 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And one thing that I noticed was so many people were there with their photographers. And it very much turned into this experience where you're kind of busy cataloging it and saying like, I'm getting all this content, like get this picture of me holding the umbrella just right, or me like drinking champagne and all this stuff. So I see people, are they really living and having fun in the moment? Or are you kind of like, I'm getting all these pictures and this content and this, in this situation. And it's like, it was my birthday. I was there to have fun. I took some pictures and said, okay, I'm going to take my shoes off and have a good time. So I wonder how some of the bigger brands or accounts on Instagram, how do they even handle what is my life and what is content?
What's work?
Yeah, what's work?
Yeah, because they just stand there. Like, they saw that event, they just had their backs turned to the whole event the entire time. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, so that's another thing where you're constantly saying what's cutlery or what am I cooking for other people, and what am I just trying to cook because it's 7:00 and I'm hungry on a Wednesday night, and what do I share and what do I withhold, or what do I edit and what do I curate and what's really me. So that's a big thing I also try to have a good border around too.
Gotcha. I have one, I want to put a pin on it about maybe that kind of burnout.
Okay.
We can go down that route.
Yeah.
But I want to ask about, so say like that Polo Classic, that wasn't necessarily a brand deal, but like what's the interaction between, say, Polo and yourself? It's like, is it an invitation, or like, like when did you start seeing those like invitation type things pop up in your email?
Sure. So with that, it was just me purely wanting to go because it was my birthday and I had seen other people go to it, and they have, I think under the hashtag right now, they have almost 80,000 pictures. So it's definitely something that I've seen other people go to, and I will kind of, say, oh, I definitely have to be at that next year. But it's, like I said, if you're one account within 80,000 other pictures, how do you differentiate yourself and then turn that into an engagement deal where you say next year you should invite me, or I should be in the Rose Garden or something like that, because you're competing against everybody else that
everyone
wants
else in a sundress standing in front of a horse.
Yes. So it's definitely really interesting where I think Instagram is headed, because it's who isn't an influencer right now.
Yes. Okay. And how do you see that saturation? Is it getting too saturated? Is everybody an influencer where like everyone's just price is going down because there's just so many moms and that just want to start an account?
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
I'm an influencer.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has the ability to be it's kind of like the Buddhist saying, like, I am everything and I am nothing at the same time. Because I mean, like, even my mom, if she probably wanted to, she's like 72. She could probably be an influencer if she wanted to, because she has like cool interests. She still shops at Zara and different things like that. But I think it's always like this push and pull, because when you go in the grocery store, you go in the bread aisle, it's like 50 different loaves of bread, and each one of them gets bought by somebody, or else they wouldn't still be in the store. So you don't want to necessarily let that stop you from being, if you want to be the millionth person who has a cooking account, or the millionth person who does outfit of the day or something like that. So you don't necessarily let it stop you, but I think you also temper your expectations, and you understand that your journey might be a little bit harder because you're competing, or you're trying to carve out where a bunch of people have already gone before you. But I don't think you should let it stop you, though.
Yeah, because it's like everyone has their own unique perspective. No matter, like, you can wear the same outfit, you can make the same recipe.
Exactly.
But, like, they're still you.
Yes.
So.
Like, one of the accounts I love, like Chrissy Teigen, she has like a hilarious sense of humor, and she's a self-taught cook, and I'm sure it helps when your husband,
Did you write a cookbook too?
Yeah, I like Cravings. Like, it's so cool. Yep. And I love that she has the influences from her mom, who is Thai. And she also has like this, she doesn't kind of hold any cards. And she's like, this is food that's like, this is not vegan. This is not paleo. Like, we're making a casserole. But she's been able to get people excited about the different foods. So I look at people like her, and I'm like, that's a really cool journey. To what she's done. So I look at that as inspiration, but I also understand it. Like you said, I'm up at 4:30 most days out of the week to go to work. Okay. So I have to make cooking kind of, and also cutlery fit into that as well.
Let's talk about your content schedule, content calendar, and then maybe we can talk about if this does have any burnout.
Yeah.
Or like some people call it the grind, or the churn, or just like the constant, like, what am I going to post today?
Yes.
Like, let's go through your process from, idea, inspiration, all the way to posting.
Sure. So because I have a day job and I have a commute that's pretty strenuous, I try to just squeeze it in. So I'm one of those people where I already enjoy cooking. So one of my kind of hacks is I actually go to Whole Foods. There's a Whole Foods across from my job. I go there and I buy all my groceries at lunch. So that's my lunch hour. I go grocery shopping. That way when I come home, I can chop, I can cook, and do different things like that. So I really try to make cutlery something where if it's organic, if I'm like, okay, I plated this really nicely, let me take pictures and then I'll post it. So I don't necessarily have a content schedule. I more or less just kind of post when it feels right and when I have the time for it. And then I kind of build around it, because like we're going to talk about it probably a little bit later, but it can be very difficult to be on a content schedule, especially if you have a day job, or you're a mom, or you're a working father, or different things like that, where you have all these different demands. Because I noticed, like, a few months ago, I was out and I was going to take pictures of something I was eating. I forgot where we were. And I was like, ooh, this will make great content. My husband was like, you're one of those people now. like you're a content person now. So I think, like I said, I probably should be on a little bit more of a content schedule, but I just do it when it feels organic, and I just do it when I feel like I have the time, because it's, you have to plate the food. You're thinking about what you're cooking. I'm looking at the hashtags. I'm like, is it National Pasta Day? Is it Pizza Day? Is it, like, yesterday was National Rosé Day and stuff. So I had a couple things in my stories from when I gone to the Clico Polo Classic. So, but I know that there are people that, one of my really good friends, she also does a lot of photography, and she has her content schedule for the whole month. And I'm like, whoa.
30 days out.
Yes, she does it 30. She picks one weekend every month, and she plans for the next 30 days. And I wish I could be that disciplined, but you guys are going to get what you get. Which has been fun, though.
Yeah. So are you just kind of like, it's Tuesday, I've got some content, let's throw it up.
Yeah, and I'll post it, or sometimes I'll say, hey guys, I'm, oh God, there goes that YouTube, hey guys. I'll get on my stories and I'll say, tonight I'm making pasta with chicken sausage and basil, and I'll walk them through how to make it all. Or recently I built a overhead camera rig. I didn't want to have to buy one because they're like $200. So I went to Home Depot and I got all the materials and I built it for myself for about like $90. So I've been making time to walk people through whether I did like a, what did I do? I did like a lemon curd the other day. I was making different things. So I'll just kind of post it when I have time. And the one thing I'm really grateful for is I have some flexibility in my schedule. So during the day, I can carve out like an hour to go ahead and do it. So you just have to make time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you collect your ideas? Do you do you have some sort of app, or do you have some sort of like master list where you have all your content ideas, recipes? Do you track even like fashion ideas too?
I do.
Or travel ideas?
Yeah, okay. I'm always screenshotting on Instagram.
Okay.
Like if I see different things that people are using, I say like, oh, I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna need to set an alarm because I want to revisit this thing that I've just seen. Airtable is really great because you can do mood boards in there. You can track different projects that you're working on. So it's really great for checking like, do I need to order this? Like I found a really awesome company through Etsy that they make the photo drop backgrounds, and I ordered from there, and I found that on Instagram, just taking a picture and locating it. So that's kind of how I warehouse all my information. I'm constantly like, what excites me? What inspires me? What do I want to try to recreate on my own? So that's how I kind of do it.
Okay. And from there, are you prioritizing it? Are you saying like this? I mean, because you say you don't do really any pre-scheduling, nothing like that.
I should probably do it more. Like I think in July, we were thinking about going to Complex Con in Chicago. So what I might do is I'll say, okay, if I'm going here, I'm going to make sure I get some pictures. Or when I was in New York 2 weeks ago, I went to Supreme. So I made sure I got some pictures while I was in there and stuff. So I'll do a little bit of scouting, but I really keep it pretty light because you're always, at least for me, I'm always balancing just having a good time and making sure I'm living life. And then also saying, you know what, if I want to share this, I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're getting ready to post a photo. What are your apps? What are your tricks? What are your tips for that?
So I love Lightroom presets.
Okay.
They make my life so much easier, and I get them off of Etsy because they're like $3 and $4, and I save them. So I have some for food, some for landscape, some for that I think work really well with my skin tone. So that helps a great deal. I use the Foodie app. I'm going to take a look at my phone because I have them all in like a little category. I use Canva. That's really great for getting those nice white borders around your pictures, especially when you post them in your stories. So I can kind of lay out a story and kind of have a narrative like, oh, I'm out grocery shopping, and I'll like draw on it with my little iPhone pen and different things like that. I recently started getting into iMovie, which is really great for doing quick edits. Also like Spark Video is pretty good. I used to use Visco a lot. I don't use it nearly as much because I have the Lightroom.
It's great for filters. But
exactly.
Lightroom.
Lightroom is super easy for me. And then business wise, I have like Squarespace Analytics on here. So that's super helpful too. Yeah.
Sweet. So let's talk a little bit about your ecosystem with Cutlery.
Yeah, sure.
Most of your folks see you through Cutlery on Instagram, and then from there, do you want them to hang out in Instagram, or do you want them to go to your website? What is the desired kind of path for an audience member?
Sure. So for me, I really at least love Instagram for the visual storytelling aspect. So what I try to make sure I do is if I take like a big trip, I do the highlights on my profile. So I have like if I went to the Caymans or going to LA, or when I even 2 months ago went to Houston for a rodeo, which was my first time ever doing it. And it was an awesome experience. I go to Arizona a lot, out to Scottsdale. So I really love that if people can look through my travels, they'll get kind of an idea of what I'm all about, which is some lifestyle, but also just cooking and kind of snapshotting what is inspirational for me. So that's kind of like my ecosystem. If they go to Cutlery by Cat, I'm really happy, and I check my analytics, and I love you guys that when you pop up and you go visit. But I think for me, if you kind of go down the rabbit hole on my Instagram, I'm really excited about that too, because I do put a lot of work into, doing the grid or getting interesting content, whether I'm at the Guggenheim or I'm in New Orleans and I'm buying seasonings or different things like that. So I love if you get stuck on my Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
With recipes, how are you developing those recipes? Is there testing? Is there inspiration? Is there a little bit of like, oh, I saw this on Bon Appetit. I'm gonna make that my version of Bon Appetit.
It's like all of that. So I definitely have a test kitchen going on, and I'm kind of going over to my husband like, can you taste this and tell me what I'm missing? I have great joy in exploring. I also believe in learning the rules so you can break them. So one of the first cookbooks I invested in was The Art of French Cooking, Julia Child. Getting all the how to make a roux, how to make a sauce properly, cutting techniques. Another book that I really love is Mark Bittman's Kitchen Matrix, learning flavor profiles. So if you want to make your own salad dressing, what's the right ratio of acidity to balancing out with maybe something sweet or something fresh or an herb or making it more savory. So I'm always like testing little things, but I definitely love putting my own twist on it. I think the other day we found a recipe. I subscribed to New York Times Cooking, and I started out with what was in the recipe, and then by the end I had kind of like rummaged through my cabinet and I pulled some basil out and I was like putting cheese on it. So it definitely was a little bit different than when I started, but I just really have fun with it. I think one of the best takeaways from this is if people could learn how to be a little bit more intuitive when they cook. I love following recipes, but you have to constantly be tasting as you're going along, adding in your own little twist. What makes you happy about food, go ahead and put some of that in there. If you have like a seasoning blend that grandma told you about, throw that in there too. So just having fun with it.
Okay. And that's, I was going to ask you, like, how strict are you to like, you must follow this recipe exactly, or like, add salt, don't add salt.
Yeah.
Like, it's up to you.
So the interesting thing is because baking is like chemistry.
Okay.
That I follow.
You got to get that right.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Baking is like, I have a digital scale at home. If I'm using my KitchenAid mixer, so I make a replica of the Levon bakery cookies, and that recipe is so strict that you have to count the revolutions. When as the mixer is going around, I'm like, okay, 3, 2, 1, stop mixing, because if you overmix it, the cookies they get too soft in the oven and they don't cook right. So if it's baking, I am a chemist. I'm following exactly what they tell me. If it's anything else, I'm like, man, if that's burnt, we're just gonna flip that over and put some sauce on it. Nobody will know.
Because like grilling, sautéing, even like salads, you can just you don't have to get it exactly right.
Exactly. Now, if, like you said, if it's sometimes cooking meat, I'm really particular because if it's salmon, you don't want it to dry out. So I have a special way that I cook that where I might only saute it on one side, flip it in a cast iron skillet, and then put that in the oven. That way it browns on and sears on both sides, but the middle is still nice and moist, doesn't get overly dry. So with that, I'm a little bit particular, but anything else, I'm like, we're gonna be okay. And I think part of that is having that lightheartedness around cooking. But yeah, if it's baking, I'm following on instructions.
Okay. I'll put you on the spot with this one, but one of your favorite, let's say I have no cooking skills whatsoever, I come to your website, what's like a good recipe that you're going to recommend?
Ooh, probably my midweek turkey bolognese.
Okay.
Because you have the freedom to put in veggies that you like, but you're not necessarily on the spot to make your tomato sauce from scratch. So I love Rouse sauce. It has great taste. You can also put in some maybe like tomato puree if you want, or if you just want to start with like, I know Action Bronson. I really love his Instagram account, and he's really cool. He has a 2-minute tomato sauce that I follow, which is just crushed San Marzano tomatoes, Calabrian chilies, fried garlic, and a little olive oil and fresh basil. And you have like pasta sauce right then and there. So like definitely the midweek bolognese that's on there is a really good one. I love making ice cream. Believe it or not,
That's a simple thing to do?
Yes.
Okay.
If people think that. So I have the Cuisinart ice cream maker, and you just put the cylinders in the freezer overnight, and you can go to town. Like, you can be your own, like, Baskin Robbins with this, because I've made creme brulee ice cream. I make the edible cookie dough ice cream. I've made strawberry shortcake. Like, anything you have in the refrigerator, you're like, I want to put some cinnamon toast crunch in there.
Okay.
You cannot mess up ice cream.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I have the ice cream recipes on there. I'm trying to think. I just have a lot of stuff. I also do some lifestyle and travel too. But I think if you could take away anything, is like, how do I make cooking fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like approachable. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, because it's like, I think with how easy delivery is nowadays,
Yes.
and like just frozen food
Yes.
section is like overflowing, like people have like kind of forgotten how to cook, like
Yeah.
the basics of cooking, or because it's intimidating.
Yes, and that's one thing I hope that people kind of take away as well, is that cooking, you're not cooking for Gordon Ramsay. You're not on MasterChef. And I think that while, people like him, or like Alton Brown, that are like, they are chefs to like with precision, and they have been, in this field for decades, and they know exactly what they want to do. You don't have to be that person. You're just cooking for you and your family. So that's why I do kind of think that it is good that they have meal delivery services, or even when you go to the grocery store, if you can get something that's already chopped. Like, I love using cauliflower rice, and I don't always feel like mashing it up in my food processor. So I'll go in the frozen section, and if they have a bag that's already made, I'm super happy. But I think whatever kind of gets you over that hump of saying, like, am I going to burn this? Am I going to mess this up? Just start small. Like, say, or better yet, I have a rule where I kind of look at cooking sometimes as like climbing Mount Everest, and sometimes you just want to get to that next summit. So one way that I take away a lot of the stress is that I don't need to do everything. If I'm going to make my own sauce, then I might buy fresh pasta. I'm not going to make fresh pasta too, because making fresh pasta is kind of hard. So you don't have to do everything. If you want to make an awesome dessert, then maybe say, like, you know what? I'm going to use store-bought ice cream, but maybe I'll make like a nice compote, or like maybe I'll just get like the little angel cake that's already made, and I'll focus on the ice cream. So you don't have to do everything yourself. You can call in help. You can phone a friend.
Gotcha. With the cooking side of your brand, are there any plans to do like a big project? Like, do you like how far out of the question is a cookbook, or like an ebook? Like, is that something like?
So that's exactly what I'm working towards right now, is starting to catalog some of my favorite dishes, and I would love to do an ebook. So it's something I've kind of been working around in the background, and when I do my cooking workshop in 2 weeks, I'll be able to debut some of those dishes as well. So for the cooking workshop that I'm doing in conjunction with Common Good City Farm in DC, which is right over in LaJoy Park next to Howard University, I'm going to be doing a ratatouille, which is just a fancy chopped vegetable dish with tomatoes. And it's really delicious, and it looks fancy. It's one of those show dishes. If you can think about like the Rice Krispies commercial from like the 90s, where the mom had to splash her face with flour and water and and tussle her hair so she looked like she had just been through it all. And she says, hey, here are those Rice Krispies. That's definitely a dish where it's a showpiece. It's super pretty, but easy to make. So I'll be doing that. I'll also be doing fried okra. My mom's from the South, so I love comfort dishes, and fried okra is like the chicken nugget of vegetables. So if you like deep fried stuff, that's right up your alley. I'll also just be doing a crudité platter with some green goddess dressing. So all those little things that are easy to make, good for entertaining, something that you can have fun with. That's what I'll be including in there. So yeah, you like kind of spoke it up.
Nice. I mean, have you ever done an ebook? Like, do you know the process of doing an ebook? I don't.
So I've been researching it, and like I said, I look for help when I can. So I found a preset template that I already want to use, and it's just me doing the photography and already putting it in there.
Drag and drop.
Exactly.
Nice.
And that helps because, I kind of look at things like a pie chart. So I already have like a finite amount of, bandwidth and time and resources. So I can either focus on maybe the layout and getting that just right, or try saying, you know what, I'm going to cook, plate, and edit and take all the pictures. So let me just kind of focus on that. So I've been looking at a way to try to charge for that, or if I want to turn that into something where it's just more of an entryway into something else more concrete, I want to do. But yeah, I've been looking into an ebook, and people have been asking, like people DM me and say like, A, when are you going to cook for me? And B, how can I make this myself?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's like, I mean, from a business perspective, there's a lot of like revenues that you can do. It's like ebook, and you say you're doing your online, or not your online course, you're doing an actual
cooking
live
demo.
Yeah, live. So how was that organizing a live demo? Like, or tell me about the first one.
Yeah, sure. So I submitted a proposal to a spice shop that I had shopped at, and I really loved their journey, and I pitched the idea to them, and they had a cooking space, because one of the hardest expenses is finding a place that I can rent and cook in. That's a great expense. I have to provide all my own supplies, food, which is not cheap. And how do I kind of break even? So I ended up,
and per group or per classmate,
if you're going to do per person, you need to have so many courses to kind of make the ticket sales look more appetizing, pun intended, for them to want to support you. So I found a great collaboration between me and this spice shop, and I ended up getting the sickest I had ever been in like 10 years. Like I was out of work for a while. I was like really sick, and it was really deflating for me because I had put so much time into the proposal, planning, ordering all this stuff. I remember I had ordered all these micro herbs to be flown in from California. So I kind of get this right, and I get this package, and I can't even taste anything. So because my nose is so stuffed up, and I was sick. So with that happening, it was really like, how do I kind of pick myself up and dust myself off and start again? And luckily, everybody was understanding, because nobody wants you coughing over them while you're cooking.
Sure, yeah.
So it was amazing. So then Common Good City Farm reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to do a workshop? And I was like, absolutely, I would. So I put together a proposal, and I used some of the photography from existing dishes I had already made that were on my website and were on Cutlery. And what I did was I decided to tie showcasing their food from their farmers market and their farm on site with teaching about the history of LaJoy Park. And they loved the idea, and that's what it's going to be. So it's going to be called A Taste of History. It's on Thursday, June 20th. And you're going to see me prepare some food for you. You're going to get to taste several dishes, and you're also going to get to learn about a really amazing history of the area, which is LaJoy Park. So it's right next to Howard University. It's that perfect kind of like green space within the city, and it has an exciting history. Yeah.
So you've got the ebook, you've got the live demo,
Yes.
you've got your Cutlery brand as a
Yes.
whole. How are you approaching this all as a small business owner?
Great. So one of the best tips that I read was, even if you're a small business, even if you have like a little nugget of an idea, you need to start tracking your money, because it's very easy when you kind of tell yourself, well, I kind of told myself from the beginning, well, I don't necessarily have a service that I'm selling immediately because I'm just an Instagram account. So I can just kind of take my regular money and use it to funnel it over here. And what ends up happening is you put more money into it than you even realize, because you're like, oh, I can just order this stuff on Amazon, or, oh, yeah, I can just buy this KitchenAid mixer because I'm totally going to use it and use it for business. It's for the business, quote unquote. So kind of starting to really track my expenses. So I have expense tracker on my phone that I use. Airtable is really great for taking pictures of your receipts or a screenshot of when you order things online. And that really kind of helped me kind of put the brakes on and put a yellow light and say, like, what is the end goal? Because I'm investing a lot of, money or time or resources into this. I should get paid for it at some point, even if it's not necessarily today. And also kind of helping to say, let me put on my business hat first, because I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know definitely me, where you're like, well, I'm good at this thing. I don't know if I should charge people for it, or, this is just for me. This is a hobby. And I think if it's something you really care about, you're constantly in a state of curiosity and learning, you should be paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because we talked about earlier a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Like, and then, in my world, and I'm sure your world, with like the creatives or like the struggling artists,
Yes.
like they're afraid to charge, or like why do you think that is, or why, and how have you convinced yourself like I need to be paid for this?
I struggle with that a great deal because I have been Instagramming my food for at least like 5 or 6 years now. Before I was like, and I would always kind of hide behind, oh, this is just a hobby, or I'm just having fun. You guys, I'm just posting, you guys. And I think part of it is fear that if I actually put this thing that I care about and I really love doing out for other people, are they going to pay me for it? Are they going to like it? So I think sometimes, for me at least, it was very easy for me to kind of hide behind and say, well, this is just a hobby. This is just something I love. And my husband has been a big person in my life that has pushed me to say, you're talented. You should get paid for this. And I think if you kind of, at least for me, reframe it of, okay, I don't need to make $1 million from it, but I at least should be paid for the energy that I've put into something. So definitely me doing this cooking demo was me stepping out and kind of getting across fear and saying, you know what, I'm going to put this out there, and whoever decides to buy a ticket, I'm going to make this like the best demo you've ever been to, and just focus on that.
I mean, it's how early on, how important is it to say yes to opportunity versus no? Like what's the balance between like, vetting opportunities that come into your inbox, or hey, we want you to do a cooking demo. What, like, early on, is it do you say yes to everything and then dial it back, or like what's the proper approach to this?
I think that's an amazing question, because it's something that I struggle with, because people would ask me and say, hey, do you want to do meal planning? Do you want to do this thing? And I would say, no, I'm not in a position to do. I'm not an authority. I'm just an Instagram person out here that's millions of other people. I can't do that. I think a healthy approach is saying what you're looking for first and foremost is professionalism and other people that bring opportunities to you, and also working on making sure that all your communication, how organized you are, how detail oriented you are, is also being a professional. So Jordan, this is a little bit of a humble brag for you, but I love like how you approached me. You had everything set up through your website for us to schedule the podcast. You had a great presence online, and that made me say yes to the opportunity. So that's definitely what you should look for in other people that you want to work for. What does their online presence look like? Because if they're loose with the details with their own business, they're going to be loose with you. If they're not organized with their own business, they're not going to be organized for you. So I think the best thing that I could do to say yes to other people was to say, is this person organized? Do they look like they're going to pay me on time? Are we going to be able to negotiate this deal in a way that benefits us both? So if there's anyone out there that you're listening and you're saying, when should I say yes? Of course, tune into your intuition, but be very aware of red flags. Look at someone else's, how they handle, their own business, and say, you know what, if they're, and it's not about follower count. Do not look at follower count. Do not look at different things like that. Look at the time and detail and passion that someone puts into their own business, because they'll do that with you.
Yeah, because even going back to what we said earlier about, these folks that do these brand deals, and then everything changes, and then the relationship between the brand, and your audience, just now it's, you're no longer an audience, you're just money to me. Like you're just potential revenue dollars to me.
Exactly. And I think what helps is outlining very clearly how this is going to benefit you. And at least for me, getting out of kind of like that fearful, oh, this person is coming to me and they kind of have all the powers, being able to say, what is our split going to be? Are you going to provide X, Y, and Z resources? Okay, I'm going to handle this on my end. Are you, let me go ahead and see a rough draft of this newsletter you're going to send out highlighting me, or, kind of pushing back puts you in a position of power where you're able to say, this doesn't work for me and I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, because early on, people want to take shortcuts.
Yes.
They don't want to put in the work, or they will just, any opportunity, the first opportunity that comes
Yes.
up, because they just get so desperate or like they hear no too many times and like
Yes.
whatever Chinese brand that wants to just
Exactly.
pay me $400
Yes.
for putting some lipstick on it, and like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
like, you can lose credibility very fast.
Absolutely. And that's such a good point of getting in a place of desperation to where you say yes to everything. It's super easy to do that because getting told no makes you feel, it's not a good feeling. But I think what you have to say, at least to yourself, and what I sometimes say to me is what they, no is a form of protection. And not every closed door was something wonderful on the other side. Sometimes it was something that was never going to work, and you say, okay, let me regroup and adapt and keep this kind of my moving forward and not letting that stop me, because it would have been easy in February to say, this didn't work out, this was never going to work out for me, I'm never going to be able to do a cooking demo, and now I just have to pay, I priced out one place, it was going to be $2,000 for me to do a cooking demo.
Yeah.
And I was not going to go anywhere near breaking even. And then I just waited a couple months, and this opportunity, they found me. And one thing I definitely want to mention is that if you go 150%, it might not work out tomorrow, but somebody's going to see your work. Because I've had people that I've never met before. I don't have a huge follower count, but people find me and I'm like, how did you find me? And they're like, oh, I saw your pictures. Mm-hmm. And that was just me maybe plating a dessert on a Wednesday night. And I was like, I don't know who's going to see this picture, but I'm going to put the basil on here. I'm, doing things just right, getting the angles just right on the food. And that's what ended up helping me. When I did the proposal, I used all the existing photography that I had taken like last year for that proposal. Never knew what it was going to be used for.
Yep. Yeah, you usually never know what is going to pop.
Exactly.
Like you can't say like this is going to go viral.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of posts on your website that have you noticed? They like, wait, that is popular. Like, how is that? Like, how did that one pops off? All right,
I have to show you because like I'll post like,
this is my most popular one.
Yeah,
Like, okay.
I'm like, okay, y'all.
Give them what the people want.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, if you want more of me walking in front of Union Station in cool boots, I'll take more pictures of that. Yeah, and then it's some things that I'll spend a whole bunch of time on editing just right. Like I had so much fun making lemon curd. And while the stories and the reception I got from that was really awesome, when I actually posted the photo, it didn't get a lot of pictures. But then I put another picture of me holding an umbrella and doing a little boomerang, and everybody's like, happy birthday and all this different stuff. And I'm like, you guys really like me looking like Mary Poppins? Holding an umbrella. Okay.
But what about the lemon curds?
Yes. And I'm like, but I like spent like an hour like working on this. So I think sometimes, things aren't going to necessarily pop, but you might see lemon curd again. Or another picture I did was just me at the Line Hotel, and it was just sipping a cocktail. And everybody loved that. And I was just wearing a beret. I guess I look kind of like Parisian and way cooler than I am. And everybody loved that picture. But then I was in Miami and I went to this really cool popsicle shop and took pictures there. And I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to love all the colors. I've gotten my grid just right. And people were like, okay, popsicles. So you just never know.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to try it all.
Yeah, try it all and just like, or be just kind of impervious to opinions, good or bad.
Yes. Like I think my picture with like the most likes, I was at the National Building Museum when they did the Snarkitecture exhibit last year. So it's just like me inside of like this like cool house structure, and everybody was like, where were you?
My wife dragged me to that one.
Oh, nice. She's a good wife.
It was cool, but I was like, there were a lot of people with their phones out.
Oh my gosh. So this in there, I mean, people were having like lifestyle photo shoots in there, and I just kind of climbed in, and we took like 2 pictures, and I climbed out, and everybody was like, where are you? This is so cool. But then I went to
that was one with the ball pit, right?
Yes, it had the ball pit and everything. I couldn't even get in there because it was like 800 people, and I said, okay, well, that's not going to work.
It was like literally taking turns, like 2 iPhone photos, and you're out. All right, next. And like, okay.
Kind of like holding the phone up, and you're kind of getting yourself just right. But then I went to the Caymans, and I climbed out where they have this like coral that will like cut your feet up. So I had to like, kind of gently walk out there in the sunset, and then like people were like, okay, sunset, cool.
Yeah, I didn't know. What's your let's get a little nerdy with
Sure.
camera gear. Do you just use your iPhone? Or do you have a camera at home? Or
So I have a Nikon at home.
Okay.
And I use that. And my brother, he actually is a photographer. And right now he works in like photography sales. And he's the one that's kind of steered me in the right direction of getting equipment. So I don't get, I know there's some people out there, they're going to be like, what kind of lens do you use? And I'm like,
always.
I'm like, I don't know. It has some numbers on it. But I feel like what helped me the most is just trying anything. I'll go out there and I'll take like 10 different photos of the same thing, and maybe I'll change the aperture, or, you know, I'll go to, you know, changing the ISO or different things like that. So I'm more into just like seeing what works and what feels right. But yeah, I have a Nikon at home and I take it all around with me. But with the iPhones getting even better, sometimes just for on the spot, it's really good. I was watching a documentary, it might have been on like Frank Lloyd Wright or someone, maybe Ansel Adams, and they said that it's the person behind the camera.
Yes. 6 inches behind the camera.
Exactly.
So that's what counts.
That's what counts. So I mean, if you have like an old Kodak disposable, if you're really good and you're in tune with your personal style and your aesthetic and you know what you're doing, you could get some good shots on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, people get really crippled by like,
yes,
okay, I can't do this because I don't have that camera, I don't have this lens, or if I had this stabilizer. It's
exactly.
like, you know, just get out there and do it.
And like I've had so much fun with doing things on Instagram stories. Like one of the things is sometimes I'll do a screen recording of me writing on a photo. And then I'll crop it so that it looks like I'm writing a message. So, I mean, you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like, yeah, what have you found to be more creative? The Instagram story side or Instagram post?
Stories.
Okay.
Stories. You could be anybody you want. You could be like a newscaster in there. You can do IGTV and set, you know, just a little mount up in your kitchen. And if you have a cool kitchen, then you have your own cooking show. One of the accounts that I really love is the Feed. And they get all these different people to do these little cooking segments. So one day you might get someone that's going to tell you how to truss a chicken and how to properly, you know, just cook a quick chicken dish. But then you'll get somebody that they're like, hey, we're going to make vegan stroganoff. And you're just like, okay, I didn't even know I wanted vegan stroganoff in my life, but, you know, I'm going to make it now because you made it exciting. So the stories is to me what really grabs you in, but your Instagram account is kind of your anchor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because it is temporary. You just, but you take those stories and you'll make highlights out of them as well. Okay.
And I'll do that because you can just have fun. And to me, with Instagram stories, it represents more of what Instagram used to be, which was like this kind of just snapshot of this thing that I saw that was cool, and it's going to disappear in 24 hours. So if it doesn't resonate with people and they don't like it, but that's kind of where you make your magic.
Yeah, and the post is more of the polished magazine cover.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I see. Well, I don't have anything else. Are there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover more of?
Sure. So I would like to mention just some awesome cooking tips for people.
Let's go into basic cooking tips or some awesome cooking tips.
Okay. I hope they're awesome, but they'll probably be basic.
Okay, what do you got?
So for cooks of any level, I'll recommend just a few things that I think everyone should have in their kitchen. So the very first thing that I think anybody should have in their kitchen is a cast iron skillet. I have some that are like 30 years old that were passed down to me, and they are amazing. You can't destroy them. Because you actually have to season them in the oven.
I'll second this opinion.
Yes. You can't do anything to this. It's not like your $200, Le Creuset Dutch oven that like you have to wear white gloves with and handle very gently. So I love cast iron skillets. I make fried chicken. I do an awesome mac and cheese in there, and I do the whole thing in there, make the bechamel, add the cheese and everything. So I love that for cooking. You can make fajitas, and it plates really awesome because you have all the peppers in there and everybody can go to town. So it's also good for entertaining. Love cast iron skillets. Second thing I would definitely recommend is at least one good chef's knife.
Okay. That's a large knife.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's the bigger knife, so it can handle pretty much anybody that's trying to use it. The cooking tips are just make sure that you have the thumb and your 3 fingers kind of wrapped around, and you can just Google how to hold a knife. And you always just want to make sure your thumb and index finger are what's holding the blade right above the handle.
Sounds like you're shaking hands with
Exactly. Perfect. Shaking hands. And what that does is just helps give stability, and you can just maneuver as you're cooking. And whatever hand you're holding the vegetable or the fish with, just make sure that your fingers are curled down so your knuckles are kind of like the guide and the little bit of a protection for you. So definitely getting a great chef's knife. Salad spinner.
Okay.
I love having a salad spinner. I used to be one of those people that would just dry my veggies in the paper towel, and you just kind of end up crushing and bruising all them. So a salad spinner is great for drying things out and just making sure they kind of retain their perky, fresh, farm fresh kind of look. So definitely use one of those. An immersion blender.
Okay.
So an immersion blender is really cool because it kind of looks like a microphone, but it has the blades on the end. And it's really great if you're making soups and stews. So you can just put it right in there and mash it up. So you can...
It's like a hand mixer kind
Exactly.
of okay.
Yeah, it's a hand mixer. And I love using them. They're great for like if you're making a marinara with really chunky crushed tomatoes. You can go ahead and mix that up. I make black bean soup with it. So it makes like a nice smooth kind of soup after you've cooked everything down. So I love that. And my last thing, digital scale.
Okay.
When you're baking, a lot of recipes will tell you 1 cup, 1 teaspoon, different measurements like that. But to get really precise with your baking and have better outcomes, using a digital scale will help you measure, because not all measuring cups are made the same. Right. Some of them are a little fast and loose with how much of a teaspoon or a tablespoon is. So definitely you can get one on Amazon for like $20 or $30, and they work great. So those are my tips.
You go in grams, or are you still?
It depends.
Okay.
Sometimes if you'll see recipes and they'll tell you to go in grams, and you have to be super specific. But if it's other things like a cheesecake or something, I'm just dumping a cup in there and I pretty much know what that is. But yeah, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, get a digital scale.
Okay, right on. So Kat, if you want to kind of plug away where we can find your account, your website, everything.
All right, awesome. So I am Kat Campbell-Houston on Instagram. You can find me at Cutlery, which is @KUTLERY. You can also Google Cutlery by Kat, and that's my Squarespace website. I'm not really active on Twitter or anything because I can't condense all my thoughts into the character limit. I like Instagram because it's much more visual and I can kind of ramble on there. So yeah, if you're looking for someone that's going to show you how to make some really cool little cocktails for 4th of July, or you want to make some really awesome cookies that are gooey on the inside, crunchy on the outside, go to Cutlery by Kat.
Okay. And the coming months, what can we look forward to? We got the live demo coming up.
Yes, on Thursday, June 20th at 6 p.m. That's at Common Good City Farm, right over there by Howard University Hospital in the LaDroit Park area. So that is my next big endeavor. So I really stepped out, and I'm excited to share it with you guys.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Jordan.
Okay, so that was Kat Campbell-Houston. Kat, thanks for being on the show again. And if you want to find her work, go over to Instagram and go to Cutlery with a K. That's about it. Another great episode on the books. If you want to find a little bit more details about this podcast, go over to jordanpanderson.com/blog. You'll be able to find the links and the show notes and the pictures and all that great stuff, kind of behind the scenes of the podcast. Yeah, nothing much else to say. Thanks for listening, guys. My name is Jordan P. Anderson, and we'll see you soon.